Hello and welcome to Block 2 Remote School Social Studies. I will be your teacher for this trimester. My name is Miss Barksdale. Some of you have had me as a teacher before, and so this will be a continuation of my expectations for class. And for those of you that have not had me, the intention of this video is to go over what will be expected of you this trimester. I did discuss this with you in person on our first meeting, but I wanted to make sure I had a backup video to reaffirm some of the major points in case you needed to watch this again. All right, so let's start with the essential question of the course. So this course is going to be something unique in the sense that it's going to combine understandings of government and history. You're not going to have a repeat if you've already taken civics or principle and democracy foundations. Instead, you're going to have a continuation that will build off of that by discussing aspects of U.S. history and the foundation and formation of our government and how those two things come together. This year especially has had unique historical experiences that have shifted the way our country is, obviously even in the way that you learn. So I'm not going to ignore those. Instead, we'll include facets of current events in our curriculum so that you can understand connections between the past and today. And the formation of those will be around this central question, which is asking the question of what is opportunity and is our country truly a land that allows for people to have equal accessibility to opportunities, as we state in our country's mantra and motto. So for this class, you will be required to have a Chromebook or a device that will be able to get into Google Classroom and that will have you work in documents. Using your phone is not going to work in this capacity. You have to not only be able to be present in a Google Meet, but you also have to be live and active working in a document. Unlike the spring, there are going to be some changes to how remote learning works this trimester. For some of you, this is going to be a bit of a learning curve and maybe a difficulty, but it's important to understand at its core, you are expected to attend remote school from 7:34 until 2:06 as if you were actually in the building. You may have different class experiences. You may not always when I say you're attending school, you may not have a class during scheduled times. That is between you and guidance. My class is scheduled to run during the school's Block 2 time. This is when I will have live Google Meets that you will be expected to attend, as well as activities that you will be working on using Google Classroom. It is very important that you do two things every day. One, you log into Google Classroom and get into the Meet. And two, you go into your email to double check to see if there's been any communication from me or other teachers. These two habits are imperative for you to find success this trimester. For this trimester, unlike in other traditional social studies classes, we actually have combined 10th and 11th graders into a foundations level class, and we will be looking at the 3 competency-based skills that social studies requires in order for you to successfully complete our classes. You must gain a 60% or higher in these competencies in order to successfully complete the course. It is important that you understand that the summatives will be built around these competencies, and normally, just as in the past, your assignments will carry more than 1 grade. Normally, my summative assessments carry the 3 competencies. So when you look in ALMA this year, it's important that you make sure you understand that you have to have a 60% or higher in all 3 of those areas. So the first competency is cause and effect. This is where we look at how do things lead from one thing to another. We do analysis of facts that we find to support thesis arguments. This can also be where you look at events and determine what were the major things that caused that event, what the event is, and what was its impact on history. Our next competency is primary and secondary source analysis, reading comprehension, video comprehension, utilizing notes, finding facts for thesis statements, or what we call specs. All of this will fall under Comp 2. And then Comp 3 will be written or oral presentation depending on the activity. And yes, you will have presentations in this class. Obviously, they're not going to be the traditional stand in front of the class, but you will still give presentations through the use of Google Meet. And we'll discuss those as we move forward. So, types of assignments. This is a change from the spring. In order to be able to start summative assessments in my class, you must successfully complete all formative work related to that summative first. I will tell you right now, one of the core philosophies I have as a teacher is I don't believe in busy work. Every single thing you do has purpose and leads you to something else. If you don't understand where an assignment is leading you to, it is important that you ask, because if I can't answer it, then I should not be giving you that assignment. But what was happening in the spring in remote learning is students were just doing the summative assessments or just doing formative work and not doing the summative and not understanding why their grades were poor. So to help fix that, we have now said that all assignments you need to do related to the summative, you have to do the practice work and then you do the summative. As a reminder, your summative assessments are the larger portion of your grade. They make up 90% of your grade. Avoiding these assessments means that you will not pass the class. So if you do all of the practice work and skip doing the big assessment, that doesn't make any sense. You're not going to pass. So when your parents or guardians say, well, you're doing the work, it looks like you are, but it's clear that you haven't done the big assignment, we will now retitle stuff in Google Classroom to help better communicate which assignments you're avoiding, and that's why it's having a negative impact on your grade. I hope this makes sense. If not, you and I can talk about it more in depth. What does learning mean in my classroom? First thing to understand, learning does not always carry a grade. This is hard for some of you because you don't enjoy school and you don't understand why you're there, and so you fight against the system. But I will say, I will sometimes have practice activities where we're doing something, we discuss something as a class, we practice it. I may not attach a grade to it. And then your question will be, then why am I doing it? Because what's important to understand is we may practice a skill that I'm going to assess you on later, which will carry a grade. So even though a practice like a mini task where we're practicing like how to write or how to look up something, I may not attach a grade to that, but that skill will be used later on to that bigger summative assessment, which will carry a grade. So be mindful of that. Learning is practice to become better at something, and practice can not only happen once. If I notice, for instance, that there's something that you're really struggling with, I may have you do it in multiple facets, and you may get sick and tired of it, but it's really important to understand the more you practice, the more you engage, the better you'll become at that particular skill. It's with anything you do in life. So history and social studies may not be your jam, but practicing how to get better at something is a skill you can take beyond just my classroom. Learning means failure, and this is something that's scary. I don't mean failure will always carry an F. It means that when you do an assessment, you may not do it right the first time, but may need to redo it to find success. That is okay. Failure is part of success. If you don't fail at something, you don't succeed and are perfect at something the first time. It rarely happens to human beings. And if you are, it's probably because you've acquired the skills necessary to be able to successfully complete that. Therefore, you can move on to something else. I don't want you to get frustrated, though, if I tell you you need to redo something. Instead, ask questions, look at the feedback, and fix it, and really try to understand what you need to do better. Learning is not busy work. I already said this, but it has purpose and meaning. I will not give you busy work in my class. So if you choose not to do an assignment, you are taking the choice of not helping yourself to do the summative. If you do not do the assignment, you cannot do the summative. I'm not going to give you extraneous work. I don't believe in it. It's a waste of our time. It's a waste of my time for having to give it and then grade it for no purpose. And it's a waste of your time because it's not leading you somewhere important. And I think that's fair on both sides. Learning means active engagement, preparation, and participation. I will say it again. You are required to attend the Google Meet every day during Block 2 scheduled time. I will discuss this scheduled time during our first live session together, and you are expected to show up every day. I will talk about this later on. I'm going to repeat myself, but I think repetition is important. If you do not show up, it is counted as an absence. If you get to a number of absences that are unexcused, you will not receive credit for the course. Unlike the spring, where teachers' times and students' times were more flexible because we were in sort of an emergency situation, we've had more time to prepare. And so what that means is, even though you're in remote school, you are part of a school day in a remote setting. So you are at a computer and you are working. So it is very important that you show up to my Google Meet. If you show up late, the tardy system will go into place. And just to remind you, if you look at the handbook, if you have a number of unexcused tardies, it can actually impact your gaining credit for the course. If it is excused, just as you would in a school situation, your parent or guardian should have a note or an email sent to me, or if you're absent, they should call or email Mrs. Dubois, which is at the front desk, GHS front desk at sau73.org, to let her know that you're going to be absent for that day. And that will be taken note of, and then I will be made aware, and we will all be in the place we would be as if you were actually attending school in person. At times, learning is cooperative, but at other times, this is independent. In my class, there will be cooperative learning in limited experiences because of the setting that we're in, but it will still happen. We will talk about cooperative learning when we get there. I have expectations and norms that will be expected to follow. Some of you will challenge those, as you do whenever you have a teacher in school. You'll try to be naughty, you'll try to get out of it. We'll talk about, though, why cooperative learning is so imperative. But most of the time in a virtual setting, your learning is independent. And I understand for some of you that's hard. Self-motivation and direction can be difficult. We're going to work on that as we move forward. And I will try to break up the class so I'm not talking at you the whole time. That would be a waste of your time. Remember, I will reiterate this, failure is not the opposite of success, it's part of it. You are going to potentially fail at things. It does not mean F as a grade. And for some of you, that gets frustrating and you purposely will then not do work because you're like, what's the point? I don't get it anyway. Because you get to the point where you just don't want to do it anymore. And I get that, but that has to be broken past in order for you to truly find success. Expectations for work. You're going to try. If you fail, try again, and then again if necessary. Even I make mistakes, and I'm willing to learn and improve from them. I will not turn your mistakes into a gotcha moment, and I expect you not to do that to me. If I make a mistake, point it out respectfully, professionally, and we move on. I will not go, haha, you did it wrong to you. Sometimes students feel like if they do that to teachers, it's going to get to them because they expect us to be perfect. I'm not perfect. I have a lot of years behind me, so I tend to make different types of mistakes, especially in a remote setting. I will work exceptionally hard to make this a very rich experience. But if something is messed up, if something doesn't work right technology-wise, be patient. I might have not clicked the right button, whatever. If I misspell something, point it out and we'll move forward. And I would appreciate that because then if that worksheet in the future, I won't have that same mistake there. Respond to feedback. So here's remote learning feedback will be given to you through your Google Docs in Google Classroom. The feedback will be given as comments and also as a video that I will create personally for you using Screencastify, which is the screen capturing software I'm using right now. What does that mean? I will also respond to you through email, and I expect you to do the same to me. If you have questions, you must send me an email. I do not want question comments in Google Classroom, and I do not want Google comments in the document because I may not open your document. And if it's a very important question, I want it sent to me via email. We are going to talk about email protocol, which is setting it up so that it is a professional tone. I don't want a random question sent to me without any name or address. You would type in, "Good morning, Ms. Barksdale. I hope all is well. Here's my question. Sincerely," whatever your name is. I don't want, "Why do I need to do this? What is the point of," I don't want those types of emails. This is not communication that is openly receptive. I would never talk to you that way, and I would expect the same in return. You need to turn work in on time. Part of emotional maturity, which some of you still struggle with, is learning time management. And passive aggressively not doing work or making the choice to do no work doesn't serve a purpose for you and will have really negative ramifications. At this point, as sophomores and juniors, you are trying to gain credit so that you can gain a high school diploma. I understand the law requires that you're also in school until age 18, and some of you are really struggling with the point of why do you need to pass classes. As you move forward, these history and social studies classes may not be something you enjoy, but they are required. I will try to make them as rich of an experience as I can. I will try to explain to you why the skills I'm teaching you are not just social studies and history and government related. But you really need to learn that in order to pass a class, you have to turn work in. And the best way not to feel overwhelmed or stressed is to turn it in on time. It's the secret to your success. You cannot turn in something half done. I do not give you assignments that 60% of it will make you understand how to do the summative. If I'm giving you an assignment, every piece of it is important, the skills, the knowledge, and so you need to do all of it. If part of it is done incorrectly or rushed, I will have you redo it because that is important that you understand that my learning has purpose, and I will not waste time by giving you busy work. All work must be completed. I stress it this way. Think of it like building a house. You don't build a house by putting the second story on without anything underneath it. Learning in my classroom is the same way. You have to build on the skills in order to successfully complete the course. One task that I create leads to the next. I am very approachable. Ask questions if you're unsure of what to do. In the Google Meet, it may be a little intimidating with the number of people that are there. So if you feel that you cannot ask a question in front of the group, you can email me immediately. I will have my email open during our Google Meet session. Or you can set up a Google Meet time with us as if we were meeting after school, as I would do in a normal in-person setting. Understand that the hours that we do that after school session would fall within the hours of a school day. I'm not going to meet with you at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock at night. It's unfair for you to ask that of me, as that is not a time I am accessible via video. If it is something work related where you're like, I have to go to work right after school, but I'm available, would it be possible to meet during this time? I will try to make it so that I can do that. I want to make sure you have great success. And I know not meeting in person for some of you can be difficult because you don't have me present. You don't have the presence of me there, easily accessible where I'm walking around a room. I will have your documents open though, and I will be checking in. So if I find that there's something I really need to talk to you about, I may have a separate Google Meet if you're embarrassed in front of the class and just ask you to touch base there. If it's a noticing where I say, oh, I've noticed on 6 papers this is happening, I won't call you out by a person, but I'll try to explain it as best that I can. Remember, being on time is important. You are not waking up from your bed and turning your computer on to attend my class. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. I know that you're in a virtual setting, but we are also in a school setting and we're with other students, and we need to be mindful of that. If you are presenting to me, I will ask that you turn a video on. None of my courses are going to be recorded or shown to another student. Any lessons that I give in person in Google Meet, I will have a separate pre-recorded lesson that will be accessible in Google Classroom as well. So it's important that you are on time to my class every day. And like I said, if you're absent, we'll talk about that in a second. So, attendance. You are expected to attend class each day. The Google Meet link can be found in Google Classroom daily. It will change daily, and it is important that you click on it and are there. You must also have accessibility to a computer that will allow you to open up Google Activities. So using your phone to simply show up for the Google Meet is fine to get started, but once the class starts, I'm not going to talk the whole time. So I will give instructions, I will have maybe a little beginning activity, and then there will be broken up with activities in the middle that you're supposed to complete. It might be watching a video clip, answering questions, and then regrouping at the end of class to talk about it. Not doing the work and just simply having the Meet link open, it is clear if you're working on the assignment or not. Many students think that just because they have the link Meet open, they don't have to do anything else, and that's not the case. You also need to have Google Classroom open and any corresponding assignments that I will give. My goal is to have a daily schedule that will say, like, you should have assignment 1, 2, and 3 open, and that will kind of inform you prior to the Meet what your expectations are. You must attend during block 2 time. This is not a flexibility issue as was the spring, where teachers' office hours vary depending on who you had as a teacher. We are doing what's called asynchronous learning, which means my remote classes are happening during a block of time as if you would actually be in school. So your class is scheduled for block 2, which means you must attend during the block 2 time. If you are not there, you will be marked absent. You are also required to attend the entire block. If you need to be dismissed, you would follow the same protocol you would as if you were in school. Your parent or guardian must contact Mrs. Dubois ahead of time and let her know that such and such needs to be dismissed at this time, and I will be made aware accordingly. If you leave the class early and do not come back or are not there, it will be just as if you are cutting a class, and that will be marked as an absence. It's very different than the spring, so you really need to get this into your brain. So as I mentioned, if you're going to be absent or tardy, please have your parent or guardian contact Mrs. Dubois at the front desk. This can be done through a phone call or an email. Understand, though, that if it is an email, Mrs. Dubois will have a follow-up call to your parent or guardian. We have unfortunately had students in the past that have sent the email without their parents' permission, and that leads to a whole can of worms we don't want to open. You must be on time. If you are tardy, if you look at the GHS handbook, this can have impact on you gaining credit for the course. Just as if you were in school, you need to be to my class on time. Showing up 30 minutes late every day is not acceptable. That actually counts as an absence. So please understand that. This is not a flexible time. This is not, I can show up when I want, I can leave when I want. That is not the way that this is going to work. And I know for some of you, that's a change from the way that it worked in the spring. So, Google Classroom. This is your most important communication, and we have set up remote standards to create a little more uniformity. The stream in Google Classroom for all of my classrooms is turned off. The only thing that will appear in the stream is a daily announcement with the class Meet, Google Meet. All of your work will be found in the Google Classroom tab, which I will show you the first day. We've also changed the way that we assign stuff. In my class, each week will be numbered. So for instance, everything for week 1 will be listed under week 1. And then I will number it accordingly as the weeks progress forward. Each assignment will have a number that corresponds with it. So literally our first assignment, assignment 1, will be your expectation sheet. Assignment 2, and I will label it according to whatever it is. This is going to help with communication with you. So I can say to you, you need to go under week 1, assignment 3, you're missing that, and you can open it. Will also help your parents and guardians with uniformity in how I communicate home. You know, Susie, whatever, is missing assignments 2, 3, and 5, and this is why she's not able to start the summative assessment. So that's our goal in helping to change something from the spring that students communicated, which was every teacher had their own way of setting up Google Classroom, which fairly on your part was a little unfair because you didn't know what one teacher to the next was going to do. Remote expectations. There's 3 big ones. Communication. How will I communicate? Google Classroom, email, and Google Meet will be the main ways I will communicate instruction, support, intervention, and assessments. You will be expected to meet with me every single day during the scheduled block of time, block 2. That time is still being set up a little bit. We may have 66-minute courses because they are changing our lunch schedule for in-person due to social distancing. So at this moment, I can't give you the direct time, but I will put that in as soon as I know. Daily check-in. You must attend the Google Meets every day. You are expected to be there. You are expected to check Google Classroom. Telling me that you don't know how to use Google Classroom is an unfair statement. You know how to use Google Classroom, and if you don't, I will walk you through step by step. This is imperative, or you will not gain credit for the course. And finally, a big change from the spring. You must complete all formative assessments deemed necessary by me prior to attempting the summative assessment. If you do not do the mini practice tasks, you cannot do the summative assessment, which means you cannot pass the course. So I'm very upfront with that. There's no exception to that. Obviously, if you need more practice and you've been doing all the work but you're still not getting it, that's a completely different situation. I will have scaffolding. We will have assistant teachers in this course, paraprofessionals who will be helping me support you in your learning. So we may have like a breakout where 2 of you go with Mrs. So-and-so to practice this skill and work on your summative. So understand that there will be plenty of supports for you if you don't understand. If you're not doing the work, you're not going to pass the class. And that will start to have negative ramifications that the school will actually take, the administration and guidance will take hold of, that is outside of my purview. So just be mindful of that. Remote learning for some of you was successful in the spring, and for others of you it was a complete and utter failure, and part of the reason was you lacked the motivation and self-direction. You've chosen to go back into remote learning, and I understand it's because of the pandemic, or for some of you it's maybe you felt this environment was a better place for you to learn. I want to stress to you that it's going to be very different than the spring. Teachers in the spring, we built a bridge to the best of our abilities, but since then we've had a summer and a lot of learning curves to how to make this situation better. Doesn't mean that there isn't still things about flexibility, technology usage, things working. All of that requires patience, but I will tell you the number one way you can be successful in remote school is motivation. And looking at a screen for a full day is a lot. So we will have breaks built into our schedule where I will say take a 2-minute break, be back at this time. You are not, though, flexibly able to just come in and out of the class as you want to. This is a very different environment than what we did in the spring, and I know for some of you that's going to be a bit of a learning curve. And those of you that struggle in school, part of this program is you have to work on your motivation to be there and find success. All right. The last thing I want to talk about are our Google Meet expectations. So when you show up to the Google Meet, you need to be on time. Our time is precious. I am starting my class at what would be the bell in school. I'm actually in school. You'll see that. I'll be in my classroom every day on a computer screen. And so I have an in-person class and then I will meet with your class. You need to be there. My time is precious, as is yours. The most valuable experiences you will have is during that block 2 time. If you are absent, I will have things built in place to help you catch up, and it is an excused absence. You need to mute your mic unless you're contributing or called on. This is a really important thing to understand. If you need to ask a question, raise your hand. I'll have you on my screen. We're a smaller class, so what's nice about that is that I will be able to see and you'll be able to see me, and we can have that communication. If you feel embarrassed talking in front of the class, let me know in the chat that you're going to send an email, and I will be waiting for it. Like I said, I will have my email tab open along with my Google Meet tab so that I can answer questions for people that need it. Be mindful of airtime. It is not a class of you. I have other people in the class that may need support and help. Just as if we're in a classroom environment, simply thinking that you're going to dominate the whole time with me being able to help you for the entire block is unreasonable. I want to check in with all of my students, and so I need to give as much equitable time as I can. What's nice about our Block 2 classes, we will have assistant teachers who can answer questions as well as I can. If there's a miscommunication between us where a direction is given that's incorrect, I will make the ultimate judgment and say, nope, it should actually be done this way. Please do not say, well, Mrs. So-and-so said to do it this way. Sometimes miscommunications happen and we can fix them accordingly. Dress school appropriate. From what we can see, it's important that this is not a joke. You're not showing up, you're not waking up literally on your bed and turning the computer on and coming to my class. You need to be, it's a school environment. We are in a class together, even though it's virtual. I don't want to see silliness. I know that there's a lot of funny things out there that you can do. I know that there's things that you can do on the computer to try to be, that's not the goal here. I'm pretty tech savvy. And if you're really, really wasting the group's time, then I will ask you to go into a separate Google Meet and it will just be you. This is not your show. The show is school, and I want you to be there appropriately. So be mindful of that when you are dressing. Come in with clothes that are school appropriate. Come in ready to work. If you wake up late, own it. Have your parents email in, but make sure you're dressed and coming in a way that's professional. Be ready for active presenting and active listening. I'm not going to say you have to be glued to the computer completely. You do need to be on it, though. So if you need to step away to use the restroom, grab a drink of water, do something, and it's going to take a minute or two, ask in the comments, ask a question. Ms. Barksdale, may I please use the restroom? I will say yes. Go and then return as soon as possible. If you ask and leave and do not come back in a timely manner, then it will be marked as a class cut. I understand that you're in a home environment, so it's a little different in what is happening in that environment. So I'm not going to be like a super rigid, you can never leave the computer, you can never blah, blah, blah. That's fine. I may need to step away for a second. And so that's understandable. I'm not leaving my classroom, but I may need to take a phone call or someone walks into my room. So I understand that happens. I do not expect you to go fall back to sleep, go walk a dog. You are in a school environment. You are in remote school. And I know that can make it a little more difficult. Find a space that is quiet and has little disruption if you're able to. If possible, and there's people in your home that are there, you have other siblings that are working, let them know that you're in class. Another thing I want to stress is attending class in bed. I'd like you to be at a place where you're sitting and able to work. If your bed is where you have to sit, please have a desk so you're sitting on your bed. I don't want you waking up under the covers in PJs and literally turning the computer on. I know it's weird. I know that you can argue with me all you want, but we're in a school environment and you need to be awake and ready to work. And unfortunately, I myself would not get out of bed and start teaching. I would make sure that I was professional and appropriate in the environment that I'm in. So I expect the same of you. If this is something that you're going to fight to the death with me on, we can have a separate conversation with Mr. Goggin and Mr. Sperazzo. This isn't something that I'm trying to make your life miserable. I'm not saying you need to be at a desk. I'm not saying you can't be at a table. If you're outside, you do need to be focused, and sometimes outside can be distracting. But I just want you awake and present and professional. That's the biggest thing about being in this environment. Finally, be patient with technology. What do I mean by that? I mean that if your connectivity is not working, you need to have a way to communicate that with the school. If it's every single day this is a continued problem, the school has people in place that will help you solve this issue. We have hotspots and other ways to get you back on track. Be honest about your network connection. Unfortunately, last year, I had many students that on numerous days were telling me their connection wouldn't work. When I communicated with parents and guardians, I found this to not be the case. So if you decide to make the choice to lie about connectivity and then are caught in that lie, obviously that will count as an absence from the class. But I do want to say that I understand the frustration, especially if you're out in certain places where connectivity can be faulty. If you get disconnected, get in very quickly as you can. Call in with the phone. Use your phone and say, Miss Barksdale, for some reason my Chromebook's not working. I need you to be able to work in the setting every single day. And if something is stopping that, the school needs to be notified so we can give you the necessary support so that you can do the work. Okay? These Google Meet expectations are non-negotiables. These are things that I expect you to do as if you were in my classroom. And in the expectation sheet, the last thing I want to talk about is respect. You are expected to be respectful to me and your classmates, regardless of the fact that you're not seeing us face to face. Sometimes, through a virtual setting, through even Google Meet, students will forget that they're in a space with others, and they will talk and do things that are not deemed appropriate. Maybe they're doing it for attention, they're doing it for whatever, but you need to be mindful that just because we're not face to face doesn't mean that I would expect any less of you. You need to respect me, the assistant teachers in the classroom, and the students as well. And they in return will give you the respect. I in return will give you the respect as well. If I in any way speak out or say something that doesn't seem fair to you, you can of course talk to me about it in a professional way through email or a separate Google Meet. I will not engage in arguments with you in the class, and just as if you are not ready to be a learner that day, we have structures in place that will help you so that you are expected to meet there, but I will have a separate Meet link, and I may contact Mr. Goggin to pop in and talk to you as in regards to disciplinary issues. All right. I know this is a lot, and this is the longest that I will ever have a pre-recorded thing for you, but I want it to be fair so that you have everything laid on the table so you know what to expect in this remote setting. I know you can do this. I know that remote school for some of you is not always easy. It requires a lot of self-direction and motivation, but I will have structures and scaffolding in place to help you find the success to the best of your ability. Good luck, and I look forward to this unique experience as we move forward into trimester 1. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to email me at abarksdale, BARKSDALE @sau73.org. Good luck.